seemed like everybody was really excited about the idea of doing something different. You know, we talked a lot about if we're coming back after 7 years, what are we doing that's going to be new and bring in a new audience as well as draw the fans back in. And you can't just do the same thing again. We wanted to offer something different, and I feel like that's what we're doing here.
The Spirig brothers are directing this film, and what makes it really interesting for us is they've only made films for themselves. And this is one of the first times that we've actually had directors that are very experienced. So it's been a wild process because they're used to speaking to each other and doing what they want, and we're used to telling people what we want. But after seeing Daybreakers and Predestination, they're absolutely perfect. They'd worked with Lionsgate before. They also brought their DP, Ben Knott, who's incredible. And what they bring and what the Spirig brothers bring to this is they want their own take. They don't want to make Saw 8. They don't want to make a Saw movie. We've changed color, we've changed sound, we've changed characters, we've changed the whole palette of a Saw movie and still kept it as a Saw movie.
You know, every set, the design of every set you see, of all the traps, that was all, you know, the work that Michael and Peter were instrumental in bringing to life.
Because they conceptualized these sets in their head, and they kind of had a sense when they sat with Tony Cowley and they worked out what the production design would be, and they came up with it. You know, we have a barn. It doesn't look, it's a barn, you definitely know it's a barn. It doesn't look like any barn I've been in. You have a milking room. Well, I wouldn't have known it was a milking room, but then I talked to farmers and they're like, yes, that's exactly how a milking room works. It just is space-age technology that kind of makes it work. But then you add Ben Knott's lighting, and that's really kind of what elevates everything.
Peter and Michael brought me to this project because they were very mindful of wanting to up-res the franchise. They very much wanted to, after a 6-year layoff, I think it's been 6 years since the last film, they wanted to bring a new taste to the audience's mouth, you know, and that taste involved giving the film a bigger, slicker look and changing up subtly some of the way that the horror aspects are treated, and in some respects being a little less overt with them, allowing the audience and giving the audience the credit to fill in the gaps and to make things scarier by what's inferred rather than being overt about how they're displayed.
There's a lot of challenges putting together a film like this, and really it's taking the pretty abstract concepts that the Saw traps are, and in this case the Saw traps and sets, and marrying them all together for the needs of all the departments, whether it's visual effects, prosthetic makeup, and you know, and all the bodies and everything, my sets, and again, lighting and cinematography, and the action and the character development that the directors want. It's tricky because of all those. It's really tricky. Every film has an aspect of that, but this one has it to the nth degree because they're so intertwined.
Tony Cowley is our designer, and he's a wonderful man and a very creative guy, and a director in his own right. And so his approach to the visual aspects of the film, including the sets and really the visual aspects of the film, is very much from a storytelling point of view, as is mine from a photographic point of view.
And of course, Ben made this thing, Ben, our DP, just made it look so fantastic.
Ben has just been a remarkable director of photography. It's been a pleasure and an honor to work with him. He also, I think, has brought a very unique style of lighting to Saw, something different than what you've seen in the past. The dark and green color palette of previous movies is different on this movie. It mimics more of older suspense films than it does of, you know, what came in the past of Saw. He's also lit our sets with a combination of both new technology and old technology, so that in the same set we may have LED lights in one area with old theater standard lighting coming down out of the ceiling, and it makes for a really nice feel and look.
Ben Knott, who's our cinematographer, who's won three Cinematographer of the Year awards in Australia, has had a really tough job because he has to make a Saw movie look different and still keep it a Saw movie. And the palette and the color that he has brought it's incredible. To pay homage to the franchise, we've got to be mindful of the audience's penchant for detail in terms of the way that traps are built and the way that traps are executed. And so that requires a lot of mechanical, physical effects and the coordination of those effects, and then breaking those down into the photography is incredibly difficult.
And change, action!
Richardson, he wants blood.
And then you're free.
So Tony Calley is our production designer this year. Tony's new to the Saw world. He's been great. He's done some amazing designs here. We've been challenged by space and fitting everything into the space that we have available. And he's done an amazing job of building everything. We decided early on that when we were writing the script, this was going to be an abandoned farm. So the beginning of it is a barn. And hence the design and the hay and everything else.
The barn is actually quite beautiful. It's a beautiful old barn. You just kind of go, man, barns are beautiful structures, you know, just the smells, the looks. It's gold and brown and the lights streaming in through the rafters, and there's, you know, bird nests and old equipment everywhere. I mean, it's visually very evocative, you know, but we're in a terrifying situation, so there's no time to stop and enjoy the beauty of it.
My inspiration for the barn came from Michael and Peter, our directors. So they had a picture reference that I really liked. As luck would have it, it's what's called a post and beam construction, and we are in our stage here, which is a former warehouse, that required exactly that kind of construction. So I was able to adapt that into what we needed to make our script work. You know, it gave us the tools to do that. From there, I had to accommodate the action that happens first in the barn. Many things happen in the barn, but at first it was used for the first trap that would kill our first victim.
There's more numbers on the inside of this. This has got to be the combination.
The inspiration for the central loading area, as I finally got the writers to call it, I think, in script.
No, bro, can you not? For real, you don't think he's trying to tell us something? Look, there are two perfectly good doors right here.
Came from a spot that really was ambiguous. It was a space between the barn and before we get to the farm vehicle room. I had to make it a space that meant something in the days when this was a functioning barn. So because it was written with the silo attached to it by a hallway, I went to the directors and I said, you know what, how about if I change that? Can I take that silo and make it built into the central loading area, and then make the central loading area something that in the old days came from the farm vehicle room, which is the next set, and they would drive through, load up their grain, and keep going. So you can, when you see the central loading area, you'll see that it was designed as if cars and trucks used to go through it, and we adapted it to the script from there.
You know what happens if we don't play by the rules?
In every film, you have a budgetary constraint. So to have to build another barn for the farm vehicle room would have been much more expensive. So call me crazy, but I just said, look we'll just revamp this a little bit and we'll be off to the races. It is a revamp of the barn. I basically took you in a big circle. I reconfigured it, put windows in it, and put the big spiralizer, which is, of course, one of the big payoffs in our show. So we went from the central loading area back into the farm vehicle room, which is, you know, is basically the barn again. The infamous milking room, as you now call it. Our inspiration for that was pretty straightforward. That set is the last trap in our movie, and is an homage to Saw 1, which was shot in an industrial white bathroom, basically. And the entire movie, or almost the entire movie, was shot in that bathroom. So something in a barn that I could do that with that would justify white tile and piping and things was a cow milking room. And so that's what we did. And then we took it from there and we put those beautiful alcoves in the corners to allow Ben to light down and get a little theatrical with it. And all the mechanisms and things were done by my wonderful set decorator, Mike Vanderteens. And it came out brilliant, thanks to everybody else.
How do we make the gore in this film look so realistic? Making prosthetics is so important to create a horror film. I mean, it's the heart of a horror film is prosthetics, bar none. The dead bodies, the bodies that fly out of closets, the bodies that fly off a hospital and, you know, hit the cement. And we did that. We flew a body off a hospital roof and it hit the cement. And when it hit the cement, it was so realistic, so realistic. So, yeah, makeup, the gore, the blood, the realism of it is so important. It's like, I guess it's the start of making a horror. And not one of our actors has ever complained about having mounds of blood thrown at them, or body paint. Matthew Passmore has had slashes across his back. So we had, I think, probably more than 12 transfers on his back because he gets chewed up in a previous game in blades. So I had the distinct pleasure of doing Matthew's back, and I remember thinking, I love my job, I love my job. It's very creative, and when you have the actor that's so on board with their character, and the makeup helps with the process of them getting into their character, then you want to bring it because you see the actors bringing it.
Oh, this is one of my favorites. Fell in love with her first, my first cut.
In the first scene, when we get cut, it's actually sort of, you know, the simplest of prosthetics that we're using in that scene. Basically, there's armbands with, you know, latex cuts that have been put on. Anna, Laura Vandervoort's character, hers is actually right on her arm, mine's under my shirt. So it's just prosthetics with some blood, but it looks, you know, you look at it this close and you can't tell it's fake. I mean, it is absolutely incredible what they're able to achieve. And I'm not normally this color. I'm covered in makeup because I have lost a lot of blood. So this is me for the evening.
This is one of my best friends, and she works hand in hand with Francois Dejanay. This is the lovely, the most talented female prosthetic makeup artist I know, Tennille Shockey. All right, most of the paint jobs, a lot of the paint jobs, she is like a Michelangelo of painting dead bodies, and I love her.
The prosthetics team, I feel in a movie like this they are stars of the film as well. I mean, what they bring to the movie is, you know, it's huge, because when it works, you know, you can hear the gasps of the crew, and these are people who have, you know, worked on 1,000 movies and seen 1,000 things. So you know when people are making noises and ooh gross and gasping and stuff, that you know that the prosthetics people have done an incredible job. I mean, you walk into these shops nowadays and you honestly, you can't even tell that fake human laying there on their table that was in some show they worked on is not real, even almost to the touch.
All the blood that we dress, all the transfers, gives it that realistic qualities. Combined with the acting, the prosthetics, the makeup, the blood, movie magic happens.